I'm going to start sharing my screen. You should all now be able to see the presentation, nice and big. Yeah, fantastic. So thank you very much to Nicola for having me here this morning. So as Nicola said, my name's Amy Hobson and I'm at Focus Your Future, where I help business owners like yourself to be able to be found online, basically. But I'm going to be talking about SEO. I'm going to debunk a couple of myths as we go through and a couple at the start. And I'm also going to give you my top tips. So things that you can be doing that aren't necessarily really complicated, things that you need to think about, things that you can kind of build into what you're doing so that you can make sure that you're getting the most out of your website and your online presence in general. So first of all, one of the questions that I still get asked very often is, do I need to have a website? Why do I need a website? What's the point of having a website? And I still get asked this quite a lot, particularly by smaller business owners. And my answer to that is always, yes, you should at least have something for a couple of reasons. One is because it's your placeholder on that World Wide Web. Yeah, so even if somebody meets you offline, they're likely to want to check you out online. That's what we do. That's just what happens. I was at a networking meeting yesterday, face to face. We all exchanged business cards, all those kinds of things at the table. And then, do you know what? When I got home, I had a bit of a nose to see what they were doing, to see what the websites looked like, to see what they were doing on Facebook, LinkedIn, those kinds of things, because that's what we kind of do. We'll do that for credibility, but we also do that because it's expected. Yeah, so we kind of expect somebody to have that online presence. It's also, however, though, slightly more important in another sense as well, is that it is your shop window to the world. So if you were to have a bricks and mortar store on the high street, so I'm from Solihull, if you were to have a bricks and mortar store on Solihull High Street, you invest a lot of money in it, but then you just have blank windows. You have nothing in the window, you have nothing to attract your customers. You have nothing that says anything about what you do. You have nothing on there that draws people in as they walk past, that grabs their attention. If you don't have a website, in essence, that's what you've got, is you've just got a blank space where you should be or could be. Now, small businesses, obviously, websites can be expensive. They don't have to be. They don't have to be all bells and whistles. You don't have to have lots of things on them. They can grow with you to some extent. Obviously, it depends on whether you're e-commerce or whether you're service-based, but you don't have to have hundreds and hundreds of pages. You don't have to have lots of fancy things going on in the background, but to have nothing is a complete waste of that opportunity. So it is still important to have a website. However, the prettiest website in the world is no use to you if nobody's coming to it and nobody's finding it and nobody's discovering it. You know, that's a little bit like having that lovely shop window and then boarding it and putting board all the way around the outside so nobody can see in and nobody can find you and nobody can, even there's no doorway, so they can't even come in the door. And that's something that I come across quite a lot. So very often people will say to me, I've had my website built, now I need to think about SEO. And at that point, I do curl up and die just a little bit inside, because really, and what you want right from the very start is to have that SEO strategy in place right from the very start. Now, if you haven't had that, or you haven't been able to work with somebody who's been able to give you that, then don't panic. You can still do it another way. You don't have to do it right from the start. But if you were to, for example, redesign your website, put SEO right at the front of that strategy. What do I need it to do for me? Not just what does it need to look like? Which very often with a website we can concentrate on. We concentrate on what it looks like, what people can see, rather than whether or not it's actually working for us and it's doing what we want us to. So from a website, I'm going to move on to SEO. So what is SEO? So SEO is search engine optimization. This is normally when I'm having a conversation with people, I see the shutters start to drop, because who wants to talk about the geeky stuff? Who wants to talk about the really nerdy stuff that's happening in the background of what we get used to and we want to do every day? But search engine optimization is actually really, really important. The definition of search engine optimization, or SEO, is the process of maximizing the number of visitors to a particular website by ensuring that the site appears high on the list of results returned by a search engine. Now, I'm going to guess that quite a few people in the room have used a search engine in the last couple of days. Yeah, probably this morning, like me, I was sat doing some research for a client, so I did some Googling. Last night, I was sat watching a program and I was convinced I knew somebody from something else, but I couldn't think where I knew him from. So whilst I was sat watching the TV, I was also Googling on my phone to prove my partner that I was right and that I did actually recognize him and he was from something that I thought it was. So there's all of those reasons why we use search engines, and we've become they're commonplace. That's what we do all the time. Don't know the answer to something, we Google it. Can't find something, we Google it. Now, there are other search engines out there, but they all operate in roughly the same way. And you can pretty much guarantee that Google, as one of those leading in terms of the way that they create data, the way that they collect data, and the way that they store it and then access it and provide it back to us, that the vast majority of search engines do things in the same way. So when I talk about Google, I always feel a bit like the BBC at this stage, that other products are available, but it's not just Google. Obviously, there are other search engines out there, but these principles will apply across pretty much all of them. But really what search engine optimization is a fancy way of saying being found online. So when somebody does a search for what it is that you do you appear in those searches? Yeah, and ideally you need to be appearing on that first page of the SERP, that search engine results page, or SERP as it's called. Ideally you want to be appearing on that first page, because let's face it, who goes to page 2 or page 3 or page 4 to find an answer to a query? When we ask a search engine a question, which is an essential, a search engine is really just an answering service. When we ask them a question and we get those answers back really, really quickly, we get an option of maybe a dozen on that first page. That's where we're going to be looking for those key elements, and that's where we're going to be looking to find the answer. And search engines do it so well that if you do a search on Google and you don't get the results that you were expecting, what do? Do you think Google have got it wrong, or do you think I've got my search query wrong? So do you add a keyword or narrow it down or widen it up depending on what it is that you're searching for? Or do you try searching for it in a slightly different way to get the answers that it is that you're looking for? What you're doing with search engine optimization is jumping up and down and shouting to the search engines that you're here, you're available, and you have an answer to that query. And we'll look at some of the ways that you can do that as we go through the top tips. But first of all, I just want to debunk a couple of things about SEO. And a couple of myths. One is that SEO is really difficult. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, when I start talking about SEO, very often the shutters will drop. People struggle with it as a concept because it feels too techy, too geeky. When I've had a conversation with somebody in the past that said, I can't do my own SEO because I'm no good with computers. And that really isn't what it's about. It doesn't have to be difficult. It is actually, in essence, there are some really simple things that you can do that can make a really big difference to how your visibility works, how you're found, and perhaps as important as anything, how you can then convert those customers. Because again, it's great to have a website that brings loads of people to you, but are they then doing what you want them to do? And all of that comes under SEO, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It has to be done by an expert. Absolutely not. It doesn't have to be done by an expert. If this is new to you or you want help with it and it isn't one of your main areas of expertise, then of course you can work with an expert. And I'm more than happy to recommend people that I've worked with as well. The thing is that it doesn't all have to be done by an expert. Ideally, you need to be able to access your own website. I'd recommend that anyway. If you've got your own website, you need to be able to make changes to it. Maybe not structurally, but you maybe need to be able to add pages, definitely make changes to your content, upload your content, change your content, add a blog, that kind of thing. You don't have to mess with the main structure of the website to be able to do that. You can do that within a template. But it doesn't have to be done by an expert. And this is something that even if you're working with somebody to update your website, because that's something that you pass to somebody else, which is absolutely fine, not a problem at all with that, if you've got somebody that you can trust and you can work with. But when you're creating content, you need to have SEO in mind, because if they're just uploading it, then they're not necessarily looking for what it is that you want out of it. It costs a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. SEO is one of those things that if you spoke to some of the big agencies and asked them to give you a price for SEO, the price would be absolutely astronomical. And as a result of that, it kind of gets couched in these almost smoke and mirrors feel to it with SEO, that I have to, you have to have a tech degree from a university to be able to understand it. It's really difficult to do. You can only give it to somebody else to do it. You can't do it. And therefore it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, it may take time, which I appreciate is also your money. It may take time, but it doesn't have to cost you anything extra with what you've already got if you choose to do it yourself. And the other myth that I get quite a lot is that isn't SEO just about my website? No, it isn't. SEO is about all of your presence. So about all of your presence across all of your online. So SEO, yes, of course, it applies to your website because you want that to appear in those all important searches. Yes, it applies to your blogs. Yes, it applies to your content, but it also applies to your other platforms as well. So it also applies to your Facebook profiles and bios, your LinkedIn, all of those things, the content that you create anywhere else. All of those things apply to it. Now, I'm going to look at some of those in a little bit more detail as we go through. One of the things to kind of bear in mind with this is a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. So SEO, I run workshops on this for 2 days on SEO. So it can go on for a lot longer than this. But what I want to try and do is to kind of demystify maybe a couple of things for you, but also to give you my top tips. So things that you could literally take away, and if you've got access to your website, you can actually maybe start to do, or if you're creating content, some of those things that you can maybe be thinking about and looking at. So I'm going to go through my top tips with you, and I'm going to go through all of these. So I've got 8 top tips for you. I'm going to go through all of these in more detail, so don't worry about having to make a note of all of these, and I'm not going to go through all of these unless I've got a separate slide for each one for you. But these are my 8 kind of top tips. This is the really condensed version of SEO. And these are all those things that you can be thinking about, all those things that you could potentially be doing to increase your online presence. The first one is to be really, really clear on who your super customer is. Now, super customer is something that I have a real passion for. I deal with lots of small businesses. I have lots of clients. And one of the first things that I ever cover with them as a client is who's your super customer? And sometimes I'll get back, oh, I can sell to everybody. Yeah, anybody who wears makeup, I can sell to. Anybody who wears clothes, I can sell to. The reality is that that is highly unlikely. Even the big brands, so even your really big companies, your high street brands, know their niche and understand their audience. Yeah, and within that, within the, even a department store who's online understands within their separate products or their product categories or their product ranges that each one will indeed have a customer who is more likely to buy it. And that, when we think about your super customer, is what's really, really important. And your super customer is somebody who, when you think of them, these are the ones who kind of like make you smile. So if you go through a list of customers and that person's name pops in, these are the ones who you think, oh yeah, I've got an appointment coming up with them. I can't wait to see them. I want to see how they've got on. I want to see how they've got on with the products I've sold them. Whatever that is, those are your super customers. The reason that you need to concentrate on them, and there's lots of reasons, and we'll touch on kind of a few of them as we go through, but one of the reasons that we need to really concentrate on them is that these are the people who will not only buy from you, but will bring others to you as well. So these are your super loyal people, but you have to know who that super customer is. Now, this might be service driven. So, as a digital marketing coach, I offer a couple of different packages. So each one of those has an ideal customer who I would work with for those. Yeah, and my monthly membership super customer is very different to my 6-week mentoring customer. But I know and I understand who they are, and those are the people that I'm looking to attract for those individual services. So you need to know absolutely who your super customer is and be really honest about who it is that you want to attract. Write down as much information as you can about them. In the chat box after we've done this, I'll put my details, and on there is a link to a super customer download. It's a kind of an abbreviated form of one of the things that I do with clients and I work through with clients. But I'll give you access to that. So you can answer some of these questions and you can use it if you want to start to build your own super customer. But who is it that you want to attract? What problem is it that you solve for them? Yeah, so when they come to you, what is it that you can help them to overcome? What are their challenges? What is it that they have a problem with? And the reason that we're all thinking about all of this is because that's what they're going to be looking for when they come to find your website. What results can you get them? Yeah, so are they results driven? What is it that they're really looking for? What problem do you solve? And what do you therefore give them? Yeah, so what results can you give them? How do you write about that? How do you let them know that? Yeah, I work with lots of clients, particularly small businesses, particularly women. I think we're really bad at it, where we feel really uncomfortable promoting what it is that we do. We actually feel a little bit icky trying to sell what it is that we do, and we can find it really difficult. If you break this down, it then helps you to understand, actually, if I don't talk about them, I'm doing a disservice by not letting them know what's available. And that's an important mind switch, but it is really important that you understand who your super customer is. And I'll come on to why in a couple of steps, but I will give you more information on that. And when you know who your super customer is, what is your main focus or service for them? The reality is that we are, busy business owners. Yeah, the vast majority of women that I network with, this is, it might not be a side hustle, but it's something that they do everything. So you end up as chief pot washer, procurement officer, financial director. You end up as, T-boy, floor mopper upper, absolutely everything. So have that focus in terms of what is your main focus or service for this particular customer. What is it that you want to sell? Why is it that you want to sell it? Whether this is a product or a service, because understanding that will then help you with some of the other aspects of SEO and search engine optimization, which I'll go into now. Because when you write content, you need to write for your super customer and not the search engines. One of the things that I've worked in digital marketing for more than a decade, specifically now more than a decade, and lots of years on the kind of periphery of it before that. But one of the things with digital marketing is that everybody kind of has this mentality, and I come across it on social media and all those places at the time, that you want to con the algorithm, get around the search engines, you want to do all of those things, when in actual fact, one, it's nearly impossible, because they're looking for you to do that, and they will find ways of stopping you all the time. And there's lots of examples that I can give you of that, which I won't bore you with now. But what the search engines will actually tell you to do is to write for your customer, not for them, because that's what they base their algorithms around, is whether or not it works for your customer. The fact that it works for them isn't enough anymore. It might have been years ago, but now when you're writing for your customer, and that will automatically start to please the search engines at the same time. But if you write just for the search engine, thinking in terms of, you know, high level keywords, all of those things, and you just keep keyword stuffing and all of that, it's not going to work for you, because the search engines pick up on it. But to understand what you want to write for your super customer, you need to know what they're searching for. Yeah, and there are a couple of tools that you can use for that, which I'll let you know about. But what is it that your super customer is looking for? So go back to that first bit about understanding them. What challenges do they have? What is it that they're looking to solve? What are they actually searching for? Because those are the searches that you want to apply for. What questions do they have? So think about your most frequently asked questions from your clients, particularly your new clients, or those clients who you're onboarding, or the people who you've just met and they're asking you questions about what it is that you do. What questions do they have? And then use tools to be able to find associated questions and to really kind of research that. One of the really good ones that I like is answerthepublic.com. It's a free one. It is a freemium, so there is a paid for version as well, but it's not one of these annoying ones where you only get one search and then you have to go away for a month and come back. It's not one of those. But Answer the Public is a really useful tool for finding blog titles, for finding search content, all those kinds of things. You literally go on, put a keyword in, and then it takes a couple of seconds, but then it will generate lots of keyword ideas, lots of questions that people are asking. So this is specifically about questions. So these are questions that are being put into search engines. So if you want to know, if you want to know what people are talking about in terms of Reiki, for example, or in terms of makeup tutorials or digital marketing, in my case, whatever that is, put those as search terms into that little bot at the top when you go on to Answer the Public, and it will generate you lots of different search ideas, which will then help you to understand what your customers are searching for, so you can create content around it. But the really important thing with this when you're writing for your super customer is to always put yourself in your customer's shoes. And this is something that I talk about a lot in terms of online marketing. So when you're creating content, when you're creating ads, when you're creating blogs, when you're writing, you're designing your website, all of those things, you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes. Now, very often that customer is us a few years ago, yeah, or parts of that customer will be us from a couple of years ago, or even now maybe. But it's really important to always wear your customer's shoes so that you can really understand them. So this isn't about what I think they might be searching for or what my audience should be searching for, but what are they actually searching for? What are they asking? What questions are they asking? What problems do they have? And to really do that, you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes. Tip 3 is that it is okay to be niche. Yeah, so you don't have to please everybody. You don't have to think about everybody. You don't have to appeal to everybody. You don't have to do all of those things. When you're a small business, it's actually really important to remember that you can't compete with the big boys. Yeah, so those really big companies, those ones who dominate the searches, those ones for particularly generic terms. Yeah, so like online marketing, for example, there are so many different searches done for something related to online marketing. It's literally in the millions and millions. Will my website get heard in that? Probably not. Yeah, I'm going to be realistic. I work in digital marketing. Realistically, my small one-man band business is not going to appear on those searches because it's too generic and it's too big. And trying to compete with those big companies who have really deep pockets and big teams of people who are doing this all the time for a living, you're not likely to be able to compete with them. So it is okay to be niche. So rather than, for example, thinking about it in terms of online marketing for small business, yeah, online marketing for female-owned business, yeah, those are much narrower searches. Not as many people are searching, but they're actually much closer to being able to work with me because that's what I do. So understanding that you can't compete with those big companies, you don't have to, you can't anyway, so it's a bit of a waste of effort. But you don't have to speak to everybody, you have to speak to your customer. And even if you drive less people through to your website, if they're more relevant, that's a good thing, because the more relevant they are, then more likely they are to convert and to become actual customers for you anyway. You can increase conversions by being specific. the way that I always think about it is, for example, if you were to do a search for umbrella, you're going to get lots of umbrellas back. Yeah, you're going to get patio umbrella, you're going to get golf umbrella, you're going to get fancy umbrella, collapsible umbrella, mini umbrella, big umbrella. You're going to get loads and loads of different options of umbrella. If, however, I did a search for black windproof golf umbrella, yeah, I know exactly what it is I'm looking for. If that's what you sell, that's the search you want to come up for. You don't want to come up for the search for umbrella. You want to be visible for black windproof golf umbrella, because I know what color it is. I know what I want to buy. I know the size it is that I need. I am so close to actually hitting that buy now button, rather than somebody who's just doing a vague search for an umbrella, who's way, way down the other end of your funnel. So being niche and being more specific isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it is much more likely to give you a higher conversion rate. And I would much rather have low figures coming to my website and a high conversion rate than loads of people coming to my website who don't care about what it is that I do. So that's something to really bear in mind in terms of being niche. I have lots of people who lots of clients I've worked with who are really worried about the people that they might be missing out on. But the reality is there's lots of business within the smaller groups for you to be able to be successful. Number 4 is to do research. Yeah, so this isn't just about what you think people are doing, but what they're actually doing. This is where that research comes in. So do a Google search, yeah, for what it is that you do. What or who else comes up? Yeah, start with their websites, have a bit of a nosy round, have a little bit of a look and see what it is that they're doing. There are some tools that you can use to have a look and see what keywords they're searching for as well, or what keywords they're appearing for, sorry. And you can do this through SEMrush. SEMrush you have to register for. It is a little bit of an annoying site, and you get lots of pop-ups constantly trying to get you to increase your plan and to move from a free to a paid plan. You don't have to. There are lots of free tools available within SEMrush as it is. You can put in a domain, yeah, and it will then tell you what keywords and keyword combinations your competitors are appearing for. So maybe those are ones that you should be thinking about. But again, make sure you're comparing apples and apples and not apples and pears. So don't compare yourself to the really big companies who maybe do what you do. Compare yourself to the smaller ones, because that's who your real competition is. You can also use tools like Google Search Console to see where and what you rank for. Now, Google Search Console is one of the free tools provided by Google, the Google Suite. I strongly recommend it for anybody who's got their own website. What Google Search Console will allow you to do is, one, to upload your sitemap, which I'll explain about that in a second. What it will also do, though, is it'll tell you, you can put in a keyword and it'll tell you where you currently rank, but it will also tell you what keywords are currently driving traffic through to your website. And very often when I look at that with clients, it's different to what they were expecting. So that's a really great way to start with your research, to see, well, what am I currently appearing for and what is currently driving traffic through for me? And there are lots of keyword tools out there. So there's the Google Keyword Planner, which is free. Again, it's part of the Google Suite. There's SEMrush, which has that free part. Ubersuggest, which again has a free part to it. Ubersuggest is particularly narrow, though, in that you get a very limited number of searches per day. So use them wisely. Or you've got tools like Keywords Everywhere. Now, Keywords Everywhere is paid, but it's a very low cost. So you can, and they even have an option where you can do it as like a minimum cost. One of the things I like about Keywords Everywhere is that you're not tied in, and it will also give you lots of keyword suggestions. So it'll tell you what a site ranks for and then what it might also rank for as well. So you can see what different things pop up for that. And sometimes you can be quite surprised by the answers to the associated keywords and the associated pages that it finds. But Keywords Everywhere, because it's a pay-as-you-go thing, you can literally spend as little as $10. Use it to gather some information and then step away from it for a little bit and then go back and get more as and when you need to. Tip number 5 is that it isn't just about your website. So SEO covers all of your online presence. So this is your bios, your profiles, your blogs, everything about your online presence should be included in it. So make sure that you look at all of those. If you do nothing else after today, I'd urge you to go and review your profiles and your bios on your social media to make sure that you actually talk about what you do. The amount of bios I look at where people don't actually list the products that they sell, the brands that they sell, or really what it is that they do, yeah, because it kind of becomes this very top line, this is my mission statement, or this is, these are the people I help, but it doesn't actually explain why. And I'm not necessarily going to be looking for that. So, for example, one of a business who I worked with a while ago now, always described herself as a floral designer. She was a wedding florist. and her clients were not looking for floral designer. They were looking for wedding florist or florist near me or wedding flowers near me. They were not looking for floral designer. So yes, it was how she described herself. Yes, she was incredibly talented at what she did, but she'd completely lost sight of the fact that that wasn't what her audience called her. They called her a wedding florist or wedding flowers. So we had to make some changes. We created a couple of landing pages. We changed around some of the things that she did on the website, which was very descriptive, but didn't really tell anybody what it was, what services she provided, and it made a massive difference. We did the same across the social media as well, so that it was all in line. And think about whether or not you're talking about your service or products everywhere in the same way. So how you describe something on your website should be how you describe it on your social media, and always try and do that in as searchable friendly as possible. So what are my audience searching for? Is that how I'm describing it? Because you really should be. If not, search engines don't guess. So search engines didn't see that lady's website, which has some beautiful wedding flowers on there, and think, oh, they're wedding flowers, therefore she must be a wedding florist. It's very black and white. All search engines are. So you need to be very specific about what you do and make sure that there's a consistency of how you talk about it as well. Tip number 6, learn to love blogging. Now, blogging is one of those things that I get lots of clients who say to me, oh, I don't like to write, or find it really nerve-wracking if I've got to put my words out there, I've got to write, I've got to put something out there. I really struggle to come up with ideas. But actually, blogging is a really, really important way to build your presence online. First of all, it adds fresh and new searchable content to your website. So when you put those blogs onto your website, there's lots of new search opportunities for search engines. That's more traffic potentially coming into your site, because you can then share that across your other platforms as well. So there's lots of new searchable content, and it should be keyword rich. Now, the thing is with it being keyword rich, so using those keywords that people are likely to be searching for to find what it is that you do, but also using associated keywords as well. So if, for example, you were writing something about credit scores, for example, and how you wanted to, and how you can improve your credit scores, you're also probably going to be using associated keywords like money, credit cards, debt management, wealth management, money management, budgeting. There's all going to be all of those kinds of things in there as well that are likely to have similar search terms around them. So they will also help drive traffic through. Always think about your headlines. So what will make your audience want to read your blog? So for example, would you read a blog that said ways you can improve your website? Or would you read a blog that said 7 quick and easy ways to improve your website and attract more customers? Yeah. So which one's going to appeal to you more? Yeah. Realistically, it's always going to be the second one. So always think about that headline. What will make your audience actually want to click through? And remember that the vast majority of people will only read that headline. So even if they don't feel that they've got time to click through on it now, even if it appeals and they just don't do it, they're still going to remember it as a really good title and explaining what it is that you do and how you can help people. And one of the things I love about blogs as well is that you can use them to repurpose. I actually do a whole little course on this, a little mini course on repurposing called The Magic of Repurposing, where I kind of explain how you can take one idea and create lots and lots of content with it. And that's where blogs come in really handy. So if you've got 5 tips, then that's 5 separate posts on Facebook or 5 separate posts on LinkedIn, depending on when your audience are hanging out. So those 5 tips I would turn into 5 separate bits with a link back to the blog to encourage people to go and read the whole thing there. Alternatively, you could do that as a vlog. So you could do that as a video. You could do it as stories on Instagram. There's all kinds of different ways that you can break up those blogs and use those blogs as an idea to repurpose content. So you're not constantly rewriting new content, but using the content you already have, but in a different way. Number 7. There is only 8, so don't worry, we are getting there. As I said, it is a bit of a whistle-stop tour. But number 7 is content is queen. I hate content is king because I don't see why king should be better than anyone else, particularly as we have a queen ourselves. So this is content is queen. Each page on your website should be treated separately because each page is capable of ranking and being found on its own. Yeah, so this isn't just about your home page, this is about your other pages as well. So each page should be treated as a separate page, should have unique text on it. So don't cut and paste it because search engines pick up on that. They know when it's the same content across every single one. But each page has the potential to draw traffic through to your website. Yeah, so almost each page treat it as as important as your home pages. And some of them where you've got kind of product pages or service pages, you may even see them as being more important. But do treat each page separately and make sure that each page has lots of readable content. Content is what drives the vast majority of decisions in terms of search engine optimization. The three main ones are site speed, mobile compatibility, so how quickly does your page load, and there's some really good free online checkers that you can use. Google do one for mobile sites. Is it mobile friendly, so does it adapt so I can read it easily and access it easily on my mobile device? And then content, we know keywords and content is what is ranked higher than anything else. So having that content on each page, working on each page, prioritizing the ones that are most important to you, most popular services or products, and then working on those and then filtering that out to others is a good place to start. But you have to always make sure that you have that relevant content for your audience that will draw them back to your website. As I say, concentrate on those key pages. So concentrate on the ones that you know currently drive traffic or are very product or service specific for your super customer and for your audience. And always write with your super customer shoes on. Yeah, so always thinking, if I was my super customer, what would I want to see? What would I be using? What words would I be describing? What information do I need? And always adding value. So a sales page isn't just a sales page, it's about adding value at the same time as well. So I'm going to come away feeling like I've learned something, or I've been empowered to do something, or I've found a solution, something along those lines. So always writing with your super customer shoes on. And then number 8 is to remember the technical stuff. So there is, unfortunately, always, in terms of SEO, some technical stuff to think about. The first of these is to use your URLs, so your what appears at the top in your browser, your titles, so your page titles, and your headings to highlight the most relevant content, i.e. heading 1. So your H1s, those kinds of things on your pages. Those are where the search engine starts to be able to decide what it is that's on your page. Bear with me. So the first thing that they're going to look at when they are crawling through is that H1, because H1 gives it significance. They'll also look for things in bold and those kinds of things, and larger text and that kind of thing. But that's really what the H1 tends to be. I have come across lots of people who've said, don't know, I don't like my H1, it's the wrong text, or it's the wrong font, or it looks too big. Well, you can change that, and you can have that change in the back end of your site. But you should be using that heading 1, because that is a really clear indicator to that search engine what it is that's on there. And your titles and your URLs should explain what's on that page in a way that it's being searched for. Meta tags, descriptions, and alt tags are also really important as well. Now, alt tags apply to pictures. You may or may not know this, but search engines cannot see an image. Yeah, it's just a blank square to them. So if you've got a very image-based website or a product-based website that has lots of images for all of your products, each one of those should be individually labeled in a descriptive way. Yeah, so rather than kind of like img.631, yeah, because that's what it's been off your camera or off your phone. Excuse me for a sec. Excuse me. Instead of it just being the JPEG reference or an image reference, it should actually be a description of what's in there, and use that as an opportunity to gain really valuable information. So it shouldn't just be, for example, elephant. It should be an African elephant walking through the savannah at sunset. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, so that the search engine can identify it, yeah, and it can use that as part of its information for whether or not it should return you as a result. But the other reason as well is for people who are partially sighted or blind who have a sight reader. That sight reader, that image is just a black square, it can't see it. You have to provide a description to it so that it can describe that to the user and to the person who's sat wanting to gain information from your website. The other thing that's really important is the meta tags and meta descriptions. Now, depending on how where your website's built, these may appear as page descriptions, meta descriptions, meta tags, SEO descriptions. Sometimes it might be used as well. But this, in essence, describes the page. Now, when we do a Google search, we get the title, the URL at the top, we get the title, and then we also get that like a paragraph of information, and that's your meta description. Now, lots of people stepped away from meta tags and meta descriptions because the search engine said we're no gonna we're not going to use them anymore in terms of keywords that are in there. We're not going to search them. We're not going to use them as a reference for what that page is about, because basically for years, web designers and SEO guys have been stuffing them with keywords in an attempt to try and drag people through to that page when it may not have been relevant. But, and this is a really big but, when you do next to a Google search, think about what makes you click through. And very often it is that description that will make you click through, because it's helping you to see whether or not that page is going to be the one that you're looking for and is going to give you the solution that you're looking for. So each meta description should be unique. It should be between 155 and 160 characters, depending on what kind of setup you've got, but it's normally 155 characters. And it should clearly describe what's on that page. So for example, this article explores the 8 top tips for search engine optimization. Yeah, so it makes it really clear what it is, so that when I click through, it will tell me that. But yeah, meta descriptions are something that are so often overlooked, but they're actually a really easy way to get more click-throughs, because that's one of the things, although search engines don't take them into account, we do. And the more people click through, the better an indicator that is to search engines that your page is relevant, so the more you're likely to appear in search engine results. So although they don't directly look at them, they do indirectly look at them through the user. And any changes you make to your website, you should submit using Google Search Console. It's fairly easy to do. Google Search Console is one of the free tools I've already mentioned in terms of looking for keywords and that kind of thing. You can also use Google Search Console to check for any broken links. So if you've got a link that goes through to a page that doesn't exist, or that just goes through to blank and you get a 404 or something like that come up. But within that system of Google Search Console, you can also submit your website for them to index it. Yeah, and no matter how small the changes, whether you just add a blog, whether you just add another paragraph, whatever that is, any changes you make to your website, you should submit to the Google Search Console so that they index it quicker. If you expect them just to find it on their own, there are billions of pages out there, they're unlikely to. So let them know, give them a bit of a nudge, let them know that you've made changes and that they can index the site. They may not necessarily do it overnight. It may take them a few days or even a couple of weeks sometimes for them to fully index it, but it will be quicker than if you don't let them know that you've made any changes. So as I said, that was a complete whistle-stop tour to SEO and debunking myths. I'm conscious of the time, but I just wanted to let you know that as part of the services that I offer, I have a monthly marketing membership where you can join, pay a monthly fee. You get access to all of my training courses. You get access to an exclusive group, Q&As, ask me anything, all those kinds of things that are part of that. But I also do an online success hour. So if you don't know where to start in improving your online presence, if you've got a website, but you don't know if it's working for you, it doesn't feel like it is, don't know where to go on social media or anything like that, then I do an online success hour. I normally charge £97 for these, but I'm offering them with £30 off using the code WEW21, so you pay just £67. They can be booked for next year, but they need to be booked now, if that makes sense. You need to use that code before the end of December to be able to guarantee that price. You can use the QR code it should take you straight through to the page to tell you a little bit more about that. But the whole point of that online success hour is that you can use it for whatever you need. So if you're struggling with Instagram, we can look at Instagram. If you're struggling with your website, we can look at your website, or I can do an audit of everything and give you my suggestions to improve your online presence. But that's it. Thank you very much for watching. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram and Pinterest as @Focus Your Future UK, or website www.focusyourfuture.co.uk, and I will pop my contact details, etc., into the chat box for you so that you can connect with me there as well. I've got a free Facebook group that I share online marketing hints and tips and those kinds of things as well, so feel free to join me on there.
Thank you so much. My gosh, there's so much in there. I've got loads of notes.
It is a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. I do apologise.
No, it's brilliant. Thank you. Has anybody got any questions?
I do have a question to Amy. I must say that it's a fantastic content. It really blew my mind. I write down every word that on your slides. And then I want to say that I'm one of those persons that could mill over websites. So it took me 2 years now that after opening my business, I decided, yes, I do need a website. Okay. So I'm going to go because I'm an accountant, so I'm not exactly like online sort of thing. So expecting someone will contact me through my website, but as unlikely my ideal client will say, I'm just going to subscribe your service through your website. It's more like a shop window for me.
Yeah.
So in order to, I have to say, SEO is something that very high technical term to me. So before I build I'm going to give it a go to build my own website. What do you think you recommend is 5 things that I should do before I actually build that? Like, is it a keyword search and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would start with the first couple of points that I covered actually. So one is to really understand who your super customer is. So who is it that you want to work with? Who is it that you would love to, if you can think of, 1 or 2 of your customers that you've got now, who would you duplicate if you could, so that they were the only people that you dealt with? So the ones who don't just probably give you a carrier bag full of receipts, but the ones who come to you with a spreadsheet and everything alphabetized and all of those kinds of things. But if you think about the super customer that you've got in mind, that's who you really want your website to attract and to appeal to more than anything else. So make sure that you really understand that. Make sure that you really understand what service it is that they're more likely to be looking for more than anything else, and how they would describe it. So if, for example, you're looking for, whether you're looking for a slightly larger business or a smaller business, that's going to depend on how they may be looking for you. So some people may want to do a search for bookkeeper, other people may kind of think about that, somebody who can do tax year end, something like that. So maybe somebody, depending on what service it is that you offer, but what are they looking for and what are they searching for you to be able to then touch on that, and then look at your content and what you need to have on there. But what I would say to you is that you don't need anything particularly complicated. I would say you need a home page, you need an about page, you need a services page, a contact us page, and a blog. I would say you don't need anything more than that. And that blog, again, I would have that geared around who your ideal customer is. So when are they most likely to be submitting their accounts? So questions like, depending on what size business you work with, if you're working with small businesses, it might be, what do I do when I reach the VAT threshold? Or something like that, rather than somebody who's kind of, how do I minimize my VAT, where that might be probably a bigger company who are looking for a slightly different service. So I would concentrate it around, well, these are the clients that I deal with, these are the services that I give them, these are the questions that they normally have, and work it from there. And then build that website to make sure you include all of that different content and searchability, if you like.
So you mentioned about the H1, obviously, again, is a technical term that I never come across. Is that the first title, say that, on top of your, so more about more about my slogans, like how I actually want to deliver, my slogan, deliver the text and, solution, let's say to small businesses. So is that the tagline rather than my own company name? Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep pushing. Helen's got a hand up, and then we need to break out into our rooms. That's okay. No problem. All right, Helen, you got a question?
Yeah, it might not be a simple one, but I'm just going to throw it out there. You mentioned the Google Keyword Planner, and I used to use that years ago when I blogged really regularly, and my SEO, I have to say, you were absolutely right. My SEO was brilliant. I'd have 50,000 hits a month on my website as it was. And but then I couldn't access it, and it was always asking me to set up an advert. And it's like, I don't want to do Google adverts. How do I get to the Google Keyword Planner without going through all that?
Right. The simple question is you can't, but what you do is set up an advert for a month's time.
Okay.
And then stop it. Once you've got access, stop it, and then you can still access. When I set up, I've got a couple of different Google Keyword Planner accounts. One is one that I use for training, and I set that one up with an advert 5 years ago. And I've never run an advert on it, but I still have access to it.
Okay.
If you do run adverts on Google through Google, then you get a higher level of access to data. But the Google Keyword Planner, so if you haven't used it in a while, you may find that you don't get the same access to data that you used to get. Unfortunately, you used to get like monthly trends, whereas now you just get an average figure, which isn't possibly as useful, but there are other tools that can fill in the gap. But one of the tools I find most useful, particularly early stages of research, is the answerthepublic.com. Really useful.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Okay,